All right. Ready for a deep dive into today's news? It's wild out there.
It is pretty crazy.
We've got Biden's last act, Trump's back, how's the market reacting, TikTok drama, even some personal finance stuff people are going through.
It's all connected, though, right? Like a snapshot of, I don't know, a world changing, maybe?
Right, that's where we're going to look at. So, Trump being back, investors must be freaking out a bit.
Oh, yeah. Lots of speculation, especially that energy sector, remember?
He said he'd declare an emergency to fight inflation.
Exactly. And he's already hinting at boosting our own oil and gas production. Could really shake things up.
And what about TikTok? Down for a bit over the weekend, security worries and all that.
Back now, though, seems like Trump stepping in might have helped get it back online.
Really? Any details on that?
Not totally clear yet. Assurances is all they're saying, but talk of maybe a joint venture to fix the data stuff.
I bet those TikTokers are scrambling for backup plans just in case.
Smart move. Digital world changes fast.
Speaking of change, Biden's done. Market actually ended his presidency on a high, but...
Mixed bag, his economic stuff, huh?
For sure. Some say growth in jobs, others point to inflation, and people still stressed about money.
Oh, and can't forget his last move as president. Pardon for Marcus Garvey, that black nationalist.
Old move. Sparked some serious debate.
Yeah, history keeps echoing, even as one guy leaves and another one enters.
Okay, let's get into something that hits closer to home. Saw a story, a 51-year-old guy has $4 million saved up, making $300,000 a year.
But
Wants to quit, spend time with his wife. What do you think?
classic dilemma, security versus enjoying life. Makes you think, when does enough money become, like, a trap?
Right. Then there was this woman, inherits millions. Her husband calls her selfish for wanting to keep it separate. Yikes.
Ooh, inheritance is tough. Shows how important it is to talk about money openly, especially when it comes out of the blue like that. It's not just about the dollars. It's about what you both value, you know?
Absolutely. Okay, this next one plays into a growing fear. That wildfire insurance startup. Super in demand now, with those horrible LA fires all over the news.
People are scared, and that can drive some serious innovation.
What's really striking is it shows how real climate change is becoming for folks. It's not just a theory anymore, it's hitting their wallets.
And their homes, literally.
Now, about Trump's Make America Healthy Again thing. Investors are trying to figure out how that'll affect the food industry.
Big potential for disruption there. Will it really change things, or is it just talk?
Yes, we'll see. Ooh, Netflix is releasing their earnings this week. Whispers of price hikes. Can they keep those subscribers?
Streaming wars ain't over yet. We'll see how they handle costs, competition, people's ever-changing habits.
Just to throw in some weirdness, there's a Trump meme coin making waves on that Solana blockchain.
Shows how politics, pop culture, and money are all blurring together these days. What'll we see next? Crazy times.
Well, one thing's for sure, with Trump back in the White House.
Buckle up, it's going to be a wild ride.
No doubt about that. So before we dig deeper into some of these stories, what's grabbed your attention so far? What are you most curious about?
I'm really fascinated by how these personal stories, like the guy wanting to retire or the inheritance couple, how those actually reflect these bigger trends and anxieties everyone's feeling. Makes you wonder how those small things might change the big picture, you know?
That is fascinating. Perfect lead into our next segment, where we'll dissect these stories and what they say about the world right now. But first, we want to hear from you. What stood out to you? What's on your mind? Share your thoughts. We'll be right back.
Picking up on those personal stories we talked about, like they're a reflection of bigger things happening. Those Market Watch articles, the guy thinking about retiring early, the woman and her inheritance.
Yeah, really stuck with me too.
It's like money. Even when you've got plenty, it doesn't solve everything, does it?
Not at all. They're dealing with stuff that goes way beyond their bank accounts.
Like, what's it all for, you know? What are you actually living for? And then your relationship with money itself and with people around you, it gets complicated.
Like with that inheritance. Splitting the money seems simple, but there's so much more to it.
Totally. Ideas about being independent, being fair to your partner. What does it mean to be a supportive husband or wife?
And in society's whole view on wealth. For yourself or to share. Should married couples share everything, even if it's inherited?
Tricky stuff.
Talking is key, though, right? Whether it's retiring early or suddenly inheriting money.
Absolutely. Even if these exact situations aren't happening to you, it's good to remember. Talk openly about money with your family, your partner, especially when things are good, you know?
Before life throws a curveball. Okay, remember that Tip Ranks article about the top stock analysts?
Right.
The ones who seem to predict everything right?
Makes you wonder if they have a secret. But the market's unpredictable no matter what.
Still, what are they seeing that we aren't? It's fascinating.
Right. Speaking of seeing things that make America healthy again thing from Trump, think it'll actually last or just fade away?
Could it really change the whole food industry?
I think it could be huge. People already want healthier stuff, but now there's political pressure too. Could change how food is made, sold, even regulated.
Imagine grocery stores, restaurants, school lunches, all different.
And maybe healthcare costs go down if everyone's eating better. One idea, so many ripple effects.
That's a great point. Everything's connected.
Exactly. And speaking of connections, that wildfire insurance startup, kind of a good news, bad news situation, isn't it?
Totally. Awesome that someone's being creative in a crisis, but scary that this type of insurance is even needed now.
Climate change is here. It's now. No more debating that.
And it makes you think, who can afford to be protected? Does this create even more inequality? Okay, let's get back to those personal finance questions from MarketWatch. Remember, that couple, should the husband quit his job? He makes 300 grand, they've got 4 million saved up.
Time versus money. When is earning more not the most important thing?
Then that other one, wife inherits millions, husband not happy, she wants to keep it separate.
Tough. Shows how important it is to talk about money, be honest, especially in relationships.
For sure. Okay, lighter topic now. Those top 10 stock analysts, remember.
Yeah.
Always like seeing who's got that magic touch.
Haha. Yeah, but remember, no one has a crystal ball. Market's too unpredictable.
True, true. But it is cool to see who can spot those trends. Speaking of trends, we can't forget Make America Healthy Again. Fad or future?
I think it could be huge. People want healthier food, and now there's political push too. Could change how food is made, sold, even regulated.
Wow, think of grocery stores, menus, even school lunches all changing.
Right, and maybe healthcare costs go down if everyone's eating better. One simple idea, massive effects.
That's a great point. Shows how everything's linked.
Exactly. And speaking of links, that wildfire insurance startup, good news, bad news story, right?
Totally. It's great someone's coming up with solutions, but also scary that this special insurance is even needed now.
Climate change is happening, no doubt about it.
And it raises some tough questions, like who can afford to be protected? Does this create a whole new kind of inequality? Let's switch gears now. Talk travel. You're a travel pro. What do you think of those 2025 predictions? Cheaper flights overseas? Tempting.
Always up for cheaper flights. But, gotta be realistic, travel is still all over the place. Who knows what might happen?
That's true. Speaking of unexpected, I was surprised by that news about ICE planning a huge operation in Chicago after Trump's back in office.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what his immigration policies will really be like.
Something to watch closely, for sure. And speaking of watching, our hearts go out to those LA fire victims. Awful what they're going through.
It really makes you think about helping each other, being strong when things are tough.
So true. And speaking of being strong, that article about career coaching. Seems like more and more people want that personal guidance in their jobs.
Makes sense, right? So much competition, things changing all the time. People need help figuring it all out.
It's not just finding A and Y job, it's about what you love, what you're good at, making a career that fits your values.
Exactly. Speaking of values, that story about Biden pardoning Marcus Garvey raises some deep questions about fairness, race, the whole history of black nationalism in America.
Definitely makes you think. And it reminds us, even as we move forward, we can't forget the past.
It shapes us, whether we like it or not.
Well said. Okay, this next one is fascinating. That article about things kids say when they've got high emotional intelligence. I love those peeks into how young minds work.
Me too. Kids see the world in such a different way.
And learning to understand and manage your emotions early on, so important for their whole lives.
Couldn't agree more. Healthy relationships, handling tough stuff, living a good life. It all starts with emotional intelligence.
Okay, back to tech news. Meta's launching a new video editing app. Sounds like they're going after TikTok,
Yeah.
especially with all the uncertainty around it.
Smart move. TikTok's huge, and who knows what'll happen with it.
Big competition coming up. The tech world's always a battle. Speaking of battles, those Netflix earnings and other big companies reporting this week, investors must be glued to their screens.
It's like checking the pulse of the whole economy. Where are we? Where are we headed?
That photo of the Israeli hostages reunited with their moms, though. So powerful. Even in the darkest times, there's always hope.
Amazing how strong people can be, how we overcome things.
Some economic news now. TSMC seems confident about that Cheap Act funding under Trump. Good news for the whole semiconductor industry.
It's so important, that industry. Seems like both sides of the political aisle want it to keep growing.
And speaking of growing, those industrial display panels. Big demand, they say, from things like e-cigarettes and game consoles.
Crazy how innovation creates whole new markets for stuff.
All right, Trump's energy emergency plan. What do you think it means for energy prices, for the whole economy?
Hard to say for sure, but it's going to be big. Probably changes to energy prices, how much we produce, maybe more investment in our own energy sources here.
It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. Speaking of playing out, the gold boom is having some not-so-great side effects, like more illegal mining.
True. Economic growth often comes with a price, right?
Mm,
Got to think about the planet, about people, not just the money.
good point. Those Motley Fool UK articles had some good financial advice, though.
Definitely. I liked their focus on passive income, making money without working directly for it.
Like that one about earning over £500 a month passively, just from a £20,000 investment.
Shows you, even small investments can grow a lot over time.
Another one was about using dividends to get over £3,000 a year in passive income.
Dividends are great, but gotta pick those companies carefully.
And that ambitious goal of turning an investment into $1 million. Wow.
It can be done, but it takes a long-term view. Gotta be patient.
And for bargain hunters, there was an article about two companies trading for less than their book value.
Always opportunities out there for those who do their research.
Back to crypto now. That Trump meme coin is still making waves on the Solana blockchain.
Meme coins.
Hmm.
Fun, can make you money, but risky too. Very up and down.
And speaking of up and down, the whole crypto market's been a bit shaky lately.
It's still a young market, lots of ups and downs. Gotta be prepared for that.
Those class action lawsuits about Micron, Marqeta, Sun Communities, and Warner Bros. Discovery. Interesting.
Reminds you, investing always has risks. Gotta know your rights, and if you think something shady happened, talk to a lawyer.
Brr, it's cold out there. The Northeast and Mid-Atlantic are freezing. Winter's here for sure.
Stay warm out there, folks.
And speaking of staying safe, that story about more illegal gold mining. A reminder that economic growth can have a dark side.
We gotta think about the environment, how our actions affect people, not just the bottom line.
Those Market Watch articles about tough money decisions. What did you think?
They were really good, showed how money is tied to emotions, to relationships. It's complicated.
Like the couple where the husband makes a ton, but they're wondering if he should quit to be with his wife.
The classic question,
Yeah.
money or time? Which is more valuable?
And the woman inheriting millions, her husband giving her a hard time about keeping it separate.
Shows how important communication is, especially about money in a relationship.
All this talk about the metaverse, virtual reality, crazy to think where tech might go next.
Fascinating stuff. Who knows what the future holds?
And healthcare's constantly changing too. New tech, new treatments.
Exciting times, but also lots of challenges. Costs keep going up, and people's needs are changing too.
Things in Gaza are still tense, but at least there's hope for a lasting peace agreement.
Such a complex situation, been going on for so long. But we have to stay hopeful, keep working for peace.
And China's getting more pressure over human rights.
It reminds us that we all have to speak up when things aren't right, no matter where it's happening.
Lighter note now.
Yeah,
The Super Bowl's coming up. Always a big deal, especially for those awesome commercials.
can't wait for the halftime show too.
It's a chance for companies to show off, connect with people. Big event for everyone, really. Artificial intelligence, it's everywhere now. Could change everything, right?
For better or worse, who knows? Exciting, but also scary.
We got to stay informed, be part of the conversation, because AI is changing how we live and work fast.
And speaking of change, the global economy's got its own set of problems. Inflation, those supply chain issues.
Shows how connected we all are. What happens in one country affects everyone.
Right, it's a global system. Speaking of systems, those Motley Fool UK articles had some good tips for investors.
They did. I liked their focus on the long game and that passive income idea.
One article was about getting over £500 a month passively from a £20,000 investment.
Smart investing. Even small amounts can add up.
Then there was that one about dividends, how to get over £3,000 a year.
Dividends are great, but picking the right companies is key.
And that ambitious goal of reaching $1 million with just a few stocks.
Long-term thinking, that's what it takes.
And for those looking for deals, they highlighted 2 companies selling for less than their book value.
Smart investors always find those opportunities.
So let's talk about some of the stories that really caught our attention today.
There was that article about the top 10 stock analysts, the ones who made the best calls from late 2023 to now.
It's always interesting to see who's good at spotting trends. But remember, even the best get it wrong sometimes.
And speaking of trends, Make America Healthy Again is gaining traction. Some say it could reshape the whole food industry.
Definitely something to watch. Could mean more demand for healthy options, good for companies focused on that kind of thing.
And Netflix might raise prices soon, dealing with higher costs and all the competition.
It'll be interesting to see if people keep subscribing or if they start looking elsewhere.
Those poor LA fire victims.
Oh.
Rebuilding their lives after such devastation. Just awful.
It really shows how important community is, helping each other out when things are tough.
That article about what kids say when they've got high emotional intelligence was fascinating.
It's great that those skills can be learned young. Emotional intelligence is important for everything in life.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
There was also an article about the 5 U.S. cities where it's easiest to buy a home. Some good news for those struggling with affordability.
It's a reminder that owning a home isn't impossible, even if it's tough in many places.
Then on the flip side, there's the article about the most expensive states to retire in. Hawaii was #1.
Plan ahead, folks. Where you live makes a big difference to your retirement costs.
And for those looking for career advice, there's a growing need for career coaches. You can even make good money doing it, up to $179 an hour.
It's a valuable service, especially now when the job market's so competitive.
Biden's legacy is being debated. Some praise his economic record, others criticize his handling of certain issues.
Always interesting to see how a president is judged, both while in office and afterwards.
And Biden's pardon of Marcus Garvey has sparked conversations about racial justice and the history of black nationalism.
It reminds us that the past is always with us, shaping the present and the future.
MLK Day was marked by calls for action from civil rights leaders, especially with Trump back in the White House.
It's a reminder that the fight for equality and justice isn't over, and Dr. King's legacy continues to inspire us.
And that news about ICE planning a big operation in Chicago after Trump's inauguration raises concerns about what his immigration policies will really look like.
Definitely something to watch closely.
That Trump-themed meme coin is still causing a stir in the crypto world.
It shows how politics, pop culture, and money are all blending together these days.
It seems like nothing is off limits for meme coins.
You said it. And speaking of limits, the ceasefire in Gaza offers hope for a lasting peace.
It's a reminder that even when things seem impossible, there's always hope for peace. We've gone over a ton today: politics, the market, even people's money troubles. But it's the small stuff that sticks with you. What image, what story from today is still in your head?
I keep thinking about those LA fire victims.
Yeah.
The damage is just unbelievable. Really hits you that climate change is happening and now it's not some future problem anymore.
It's real, and it's costing people everything. Makes that wildfire insurance company we talked about even more important, doesn't it? Like, is this the new normal? Will we all need this special insurance as these disasters get worse?
Makes you wonder, how do we even deal with this? What can we do as individuals, and what needs to change on a bigger level?
Big questions, for sure. On a brighter note, I loved that article about the phrases kids use when they've got high emotional intelligence. So simple, but it says so much about how they understand themselves, how they understand others.
That was a great one. Even little kids can be so emotionally intelligent, it's amazing. And we can learn from them, how they talk about their feelings, how they try to connect with people.
Maybe we should all say, I feel frustrated more often instead of bottling it up.
Right. The more we understand and manage our emotions, the better we can handle all this crazy stuff happening in the world.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the news today, what are the big takeaways for our listeners? What should they remember?
I think the main thing is everything's connected and everything's changing. Politics, the market, the environment, it's all in flux. We have to stay informed, talk to each other, and be ready to adapt whatever comes next.
Well said. So what about you listening? What struck you today? What questions are you thinking about looking ahead? These news stories are just the beginning. The real thinking starts when you connect it all to your own life, your own experiences. And here's a final thought. With Trump back, will Make America Healthy Again really transform the food industry, or is it just talk? And if it does happen, what might the consequences be, good and bad? Keep thinking critically. Keep asking questions. That's what it's all about.